Morning, everyone. We're just going to get kicked off just in about 60 seconds. If you get comfortable, grab a coffee. Okay, I think we'll just get started there. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for attending today's session. I appreciate how busy everybody is, so I hope you learned something new and find it valuable. Some quick housekeeping first of all. So if you'd like to turn on live captions, then there's instructions on the screen of how to do so. We will be recording today's session, so anyone that has registered will get a copy of that in the next few days if you keep an eye out for it, whether you want to watch something back or perhaps share with a colleague. Currently got everybody on mute and also videos turned off just due to the number of registrations that we have. But if we have time at the end during Q&A, if you pop your hand up, then we'll let individuals come off mute. Because that being said, these sessions have the most value when we have that two-way dialogue. So feel free to post questions, comments in the chat through, and we'll keep an eye on that. And also to reach out afterwards. We would love to hear from you. I will pop everybody's contact details on the last slide. So here are the presenters for today. My name is Lindsay Clemson. I'm the Strategic Partner Manager for HTG. I've been in the industry for 11 years now and joined HTG just 9 months ago. We've got the lovely Linda Crosby here from Microsoft. She's going to start us off with some insights into the current landscape from a Microsoft perspective. Myself and Neil will then run through some hopefully relatable scenarios of where Copilot can drive those efficiencies specifically within the housing sector. And then Dave's going to round us off at the end with some thoughts around making sure that your environment is in a state that is both structured and secure to put you in a stronger position for a Copilot rollout. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this slide. Today is absolutely not a sales pitch, but for those of you who have not met HTG before, just a bit of background information. So we were founded in 2005, which gives us nearly 20 years of in-depth experience in the Microsoft space. We're a Microsoft Fast Track Ready partner, and that means that we are in the top 1% of partners performing globally, specifically with a track record for success in security and modern work. Although you can see from some of the accreditations on screen that we also cover other areas such as Azure and specifically AVD as well. We're founded and headquartered in the Northeast, but our customers are throughout the UK and Ireland. And they include Clarion Housing and Granger, who I believe are registered for today's call. We've also got Southern Housing, The Works and Gateshead Council. A few weeks ago, you'll see we were recognised as Secure Productivity finalists for the Microsoft Partner of the Year Awards. These are our global awards. There was over 4,000 entries, so an incredible achievement we're very proud of, and a testament to the dedicated team that we have here who work on our projects focused on areas in Zero Trust, Defender for Endpoint, Intune, and Windows 11. So we've got a lot to get through. I'm going to pass over to Linda to get us started.
Brilliant. Thanks, Lindsay. Good morning, everyone. It's lovely to see so many faces on the webinar today. I know we've lots to chat about, so I'll just waste no time and get straight started. So for those of you I've yet to meet, my name is Linda Crosby. I'm an account executive here at Microsoft, aligned to support some of our housing customers in the UK. As you can probably tell, I'm based in Ireland though. So I wanted to talk a little bit today about Microsoft AI principle as a whole. It's something that's really important as we talk about Copilot today, and I just wanted to make sure that we don't miss this. So taking a look at our AI principles all up, so Microsoft Cloud remains that your data is your data. It remains your data. It's not used at any time to train or enrich our foundational AI models at any time without your express permission. And that's really, really important. It's protected by the most comprehensive enterprise compliance and security controls in the market. So anything that you have set up across your Your 365 suite remains so if you were to turn on Copilot today. So it's really important to know that. But we really believe that anyone who is creating AI, including Microsoft, have to work towards these principles. So it's really important that we look at fairness. So for AI, that means that AI systems should treat everyone fairly and avoid affecting similarly situated groups of people in different ways. And that's really, really important. The second principle that we hold ourselves to is reliability and safety. So to build an AI system, to build, it's just crucial that we have that as built into our principles as a whole. It's also really important that we look at protecting private information and resist attacks, and this is as important now more than ever. Inclusiveness is so important as well. So there's over 1 billion people around the world with disabilities today, and AI technologies can just be an absolute game changer for those people. Inclusive design practices can help system developers understand and address potential barriers in product development. And that's really, really important to make sure that no one is excluded. So think of that in terms of the staff that you have working alongside you, but also for your end customers. It's just really it's really crucial to keep in mind. We also believe that we have to remain transparent at all times. So we need AI systems that can identify potential performance issues, safety and privacy concerns, biases, exclusionary practices, or unintended outcomes. Our final principle today is accountability. So we believe that the people who design and deploy AI systems, such as Microsoft, must be accountable for the systems that they are using. But all of this is really important that we consider the shared responsibility model. So Lindsay, can I ask you to move on to the next slide, please? Thank you. So I just quickly wanted to talk about this and highlight some of the points on screen here. So this model basically delineates the shared responsibility between the service provider, such as Microsoft, and organizations such as the housing customer to utilizing the AI. So from our side, we built the foundational security controls to make Microsoft Copilot enterprise ready. And already, as I've spoken about, Microsoft has strict access controls to customer data. So your data is your data. But on the other hand, organizations have responsibility to configure access controls to determine who has access and to Copilot and how to block and mitigate any risks. You will need to protect and govern data entered and created by AI applications. As you embark on your AI journey, it's really important that we consider this. So I know that's something that the HTG team are going to speak about in a little bit more detail, but it's something that we just really need to consider. We never recommend kind of a big bang approach to this. There is a little bit of work that we need to do beforehand. So one thing just to consider as well is a lot of customers are looking at using Microsoft Purview just to help them with this. So with Purview, you can extend comprehensive data security and compliance capabilities to AI, protect and govern your entire data estate, and get better and faster outcomes with an integrated and simplified set of solutions. So if you'd like to learn a little bit more about that, please do reach out either to myself or to Lindsay and the team, and we can happily discuss that in a little bit more detail. So that's a very quick whistle-stop tour on our principles and our shared responsibility model. If you do have any questions about that, do pop it in the chat, but I'll hand it back to the HTG team now. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Linda. That's some really, really great insight. Much appreciated. Hi, everybody. My name's Neil Turnbull. I'm the account manager at HTG. It's very nice to meet you all. I've been in the IT industry, as you can probably tell by the grey hairs, about 25 years. So I've seen a lot of changes come and go, as I'm sure you all have. Probably none bigger than generative AI. So we've probably all noticed the speed of technology, innovation, adoption around generative AI is unprecedented. When ChatGPT was introduced in November 22, it attracted over 100 million users in its first 3 months. To put this in perspective, it took mobile phones 16 years to reach 100 million users, and it took the internet globally more than 7 years to reach that number. So that makes ChatGPT among the fastest example of consumer adoption in history. So I'm sure you'll all agree, running a housing association can involve various repetitive tasks that could benefit from streamlining automation. By automating these tasks, you can free up staff to focus on more meaningful and impactful work. So for example, imagine being able to create a form collecting feedback from tenants within minutes. It'll allow you to continuously improve services and address concerns quicker, or being able to generate slick reports on occupancy rates, rent arrears, or maintenance issues without spending hours upon hours hunched over a spreadsheet. A recent work trend reports that 64% of employees don't have enough time and energy to do their job, and employees lacking time and energy to do their job are more than 3.5 times more likely to struggle with innovation or strategic thinking. So employees are starting to embrace the idea of using AI to support their work. In fact, 70% of employees are open to delegating some of their work to AI to lessen their workloads. So while for many AI-related job loss is a concern, the data also shows that managers are looking to leverage AI to empower people, not to replace them. And that's really important. How will your organization seize the full potential of AI and take advantage of this inflection point, all the while safeguarding your business, your data, your employees? And more importantly, for the housing sector, how will it improve efficiency? How will it reduce costs, enhance service quality? So could I have the next slide, please? So Microsoft launched Copilot for 365 in November 2023 for customers on an enterprise agreement, also for those willing to purchase a minimum of 300 licenses. In January, it was announced that these prerequisites will be removed, and today Copilot for 365 is generally available to customers across the board. It's $30 per user per month, so that's about £285 for an annual subscription. You do have to pay up front, so it is a hefty investment. So the big questions are, what does it actually do? What is your return on an investment for that for that investment? We've been having conversations with customers over the last year or so, and there's a lot of hype, an awful lot of hype, but also some confusion about what Copilot will, what Copilot won't do. Is it worth the investment? Which team should I give it to first? Will it make certain job roles obsolete? So there's a lot of questions around it, a lot of confusion, you could say, a lot of unknowns. One of the most common conversations that we're having is you simply don't know what you don't know. So today we aim to give you a flavor of some specific use cases where Copilot can help someone in your team or in your organization. By combining powerful large language models with your work content, your data and context, Copilot can take advantage of certain types of tasks off your plate. This could be tasks like organizing your email inbox or summarizing a meeting. You can then have it provide recommended actions based on the meeting discussion. Employees and teams can leverage Copilot to help them perform tasks like creating first drafts of contact in Word or PowerPoint, or asking for insights from multiple documents or long email threads. And because it inherits your 365 security, privacy, identity, and compliance policies, your specific instance of Copilot only has access to your individual pool of data, only yours. And that's, again, really, really important. It knows your organizational structure, it knows your work patterns, your communication patterns, and which documents that you're working on. It really is, you could say, very much like having your own PA, your own personal assistant. It's that effective. So having seen it in action, the best way to describe it in my mind is that it works alongside you to supplement the work that you and your team do. It's a huge time saver, massive time saver. It's embedded in the core Microsoft apps that millions of people use every day. So it's already there. Microsoft research indicates that there are 4 challenges that leaders cite most frequently as barriers to performance. So number 1, burnt out or disengaged employees. Number 2, inefficient work culture, specifically including endless meetings, unclear boundaries between work and personal time. Number 3, overburdened managers. Number 4, too many tedious tasks. So let's see how Copilot can help you with some of these. Could I have the next slide, please? So I've been in the industry for a long time, as I mentioned, longer than I care to remember. And the term garbage in, garbage out, you've all probably heard it, and it's never been more pertinent, never been more relevant as it is now. We'll talk in detail later about making sure your data is well structured and secure, but there's also a huge level of user adoption in using Copilot, and knowing how to delegate tasks to Copilot is essential. That means being able to create clear, concise prompts with defined parameters, evaluating the results and deciding what to do next with the content Copilot generates. So it's not all on Copilot. There is a strong element of human interaction required still, which we'll get to in a bit. So when you first start using it, your first prompt is literally just a starting point. In working with Copilot, it isn't a one-way street where you give a command and you get a perfect response every time. It's not quite there yet. It's getting there. It's dynamic, it's interactive, where you and Copilot, you really need to be working together. When it comes to staff and user adoption, there is an upskilling element to a Copilot rollout. That includes showing users how to use the clear and specific language in their prompts. So instead of write me an email to Craig asking for a meeting, you should really be asking along the lines of, write a short and formal email requesting a meeting with Craig Smith next Tuesday. Give 3 options of times that I'm available. Craig is a prospective contractor who I would like to impress. So you can see there, the more information that you provide, the better Copilot can tailor its response to your needs. You can provide things like purpose, audience, tone, format of document, as well as any relevant details or examples. You can attach links, sources that you want Copilot to refer to. So we're now going to jump into a few use cases and scenarios where it could help you or somebody within your organization. So if you could have the next slide, please. So this is Hillary. The first example is a day in the life of an IT manager, which I'm sure will strike a chord with quite a few of you guys here. So the role of an IT manager can differ significantly between a housing association and a traditional commercial organization due to the nature of the respective missions, operational structures, stakeholder priorities. So while both roles involve managing IT systems and infrastructure, an IT manager in a housing association focuses more on supporting social objectives, managing sometimes limited budgets, ensuring compliance with housing regulations. So let's take a look at a day in the life of Hillary. She's an IT manager at our fictitious Contoso Housing Association, bit of a mouthful. So Hillary starts her morning routine by checking emails, chat messages, tickets that have came in overnight for any urgent issues or requests. What Hillary does, she then asks Copilot to prioritize these tasks based on their importance and how they're going to impact daily operations. Then she asks Copilot in Outlook to draft replies for each. So next on her agenda, she attends the daily stand-up to discuss priorities with her team. Unfortunately, she joins 10 minutes late, so she's missed the start. So what Hillary does, she asks Copilot to summarize what's been covered so far to quickly get up to speed, and she then asks for the sentiment of the meeting. So when there is a lot of discussion during a meeting or in a chat or in a message thread, it can be hard to figure out what decisions were made. Hillary finally asked Copilot at the end of the stand-up to check for any unanswered questions or agenda points that haven't got a follow-up action. So Copilot excels at this type of thing. It really does excel at sorting through all the back and forth to pick out key moments, key thoughts, ideas, action items, so we can focus on what's important. Next up, Hillary starts to work on a project plan for the Windows 11 upgrade scheduled for later in the year. She asked Copilot to create a project plan for this based on a previous project plan that the IT department had used. She also asks it to reference product documentation for Windows 11 as well. She gives Copilot the number of users as well as a deadline for the projects and asks for sections on risks and communications to be included. So as I mentioned earlier, it really is worth reiterating. Copilot isn't there to replace Hillary, and the document it produces is pretty unlikely to be perfect, but it is a great starting point for her to build on. She's not staring at a blank piece of paper. So next up for Hilary, she now needs to provide additional support documentation to employees who are, let's say, less tech savvy. So after lunch, she asked Copilot to summarize the 5 most frequently raised IT tickets and create a slide deck based on the resolutions for each. So one of the nice features in Copilot for PowerPoint is that it will create slide notes and text for any images on your slides to improve accessibility. Hilary, she had a really busy day. She's now hiring for an IT support engineer, and she's received dozens of CVs from HR. So I think you all know it can be quite a task, sort of sorting the wheat from the chaff. She asked Copilot to summarize each of these CVs and to suggest a set of interview questions based on the job spec that HR shared. And finally, at the end of the day, Hilary set aside some time to research new devices as part of the Windows 11 rollout. She asked Copilot to produce a report based on the best laptops for management staff in housing associations. Again, the report's not likely to be perfect, but it's going to give Hilary a really good head start and save her an awful lot of time. So we can see through this example how Copilot has increased Hilary's efficiency, it's decreased her workload significantly, and how these savings add up over the course of just one day. You think about extrapolating that over a team, over the company, over a year, and these time savings and efficiencies really start to add up. So if I could pass over to Lindsay now for the next example, please.
Fab, thank you so much, Neil. And just to go back to Neil's point there about staring at a blank sheet of paper and focusing on the marketing department for a couple of minutes. So marketing departments within a housing association, they're integral to promoting the association's properties, enhancing reputation and ensuring effective communication with current and potential residents. So what if you could give your marketing team a tool to empower them and create compelling property listings for various different platforms, produce regular comms to keep residents informed about any news updates or events within the housing association. Content, things like social media posts can be created in less than half the time, and you can also ensure that that content aligns with your organisation's brand and messaging by referencing your brand guidelines. So asking Copilot something simple like create a series of 10 informal Facebook posts based on the 10 properties in this document. From there, monitoring the performance of ongoing campaigns, track key metrics like website traffic or cost per acquisition of a new tenant or buyer, and then analysing that data to identify the trends, to measure success, and most importantly, making data-driven decisions at the end of it to optimise your future campaigns. In terms of creating content, I know I personally work so much better when I'm not just staring at a blank document, and having the Copilot license for the last 6 months or so. I would say definitely 70-80% of my use of Copilot is in that content creation piece, which I'll kind of go into a little bit later. So we're going to take a look at David here. David is the marketing manager for Contoso, and he starts his day focusing on a new campaign. He uses a prompt in Copilot that reads, prepare a 300-word brief outlining the digital advertising strategy from Contoso marketing plan, and linking to that document. He asks Copilot to include sections on target market, pricing, tone, imagery, and taglines. So that's a really good example of a strong prompt that Neil referenced earlier on. It's got a goal, it's got a context, he's given it a source, and he's also set some expectations in terms of the output. He might realise after reading that first draft that it needs to be a bit longer, and he asks Copilot to update that to 400 words, specifically adding in some more detail about the target market. Once he's happy with that, David's got a meeting with his team to brainstorm some ideas for a new slogan for the campaign, and he asks Copilot to categorise those ideas in whiteboards so that they're easier for him and his team to visualise. He then uses Copilot to generate some charts in Excel using feedback survey data to see any trends, which he is going to present back to management later in the week. After lunch, David spends some time focusing on community events, which this housing association run quarterly to foster a sense of community amongst the residents. The next one is coming up in 8 weeks, and David needs to start promoting it. So a local councillor is going to be opening the event, and David asked Copilot to generate both a 60-word bio and a 250-word bio from the 1,000-word document that he's been given for the councillor, and he can use those different versions of copy on social media and the website. And again, that's not anything super intelligent, but just in terms of a time saving, something that I use if you're needing to reshape content. It needs to be a certain number of words, and you can have different versions of that copy very, very quickly. Next up, David needs to send a company-wide email, big announcement for Contoso, and he asked Copilot in Outlook to write a company-wide email announcing the launch of our new brand guidelines and visual identity. After reviewing the first draft, David asked Copilot to sound more like me, feature that I absolutely love, because Copilot has access to every single email you've ever sent, every single document you've ever written, all your chat messages, and so it's pretty good at emulating your tone of voice. And finally, David needs to catch up on email for the day, so he asked Copilot to summarise a long email thread that he's been copied into at the last minute, which has got 20 previous responses going back and forth. Now, we've mentioned it already, but Copilot is not perfect. David can't just ask it to write a brief, write a company-wide email and fire it out without checking or amending it. But having those 300 words, 400 words, 4,000 words as a starting point and being able to adapt that is such a big time saver. And again, Neil's just mentioned it, and the ROI on a Copilot license is an 18-minute saving per week per user. So if even we've shaved off 5 minutes of David's time for each of these tasks a day, then we've saved him 30 minutes in one day. So you can very quickly see how that starts to multiply up within the team, within the organisation, and save time and money. That's 2 personas that we've looked at today. We have a full persona and scenario library that we walk through with our customers, and the use cases will obviously vary from department to department or within different organisations. But there's some obvious time savings to be made there. So things like analysing the sentiment of communications during an emergency or crisis to maintain your reputation, streamline the onboarding process so that tenants can get information a lot quicker. So it's now time for the bit that many of you probably signed up for, and that is to see Copilot in action. I didn't want to leave myself at the mercy of the demo gods, especially as depending on what you're asking Copilot to produce, it can sometimes take a minute or two. So we do have a recording to go through today. We're going to go through a couple of the examples that myself and Neil have already outlined, as well as some others in there as well. I recorded this demo less than a week ago within the HTG production environment, so it is definitely a real life experience. So before I hit play, I very quickly wanted to cover off one of the most common questions that we've been chatting to customers about, the one that we nearly always get asked, and that is the difference between the different versions of Copilot, specifically being Copilot within the Edge browser. So that's the one that you can see on screen here, the one that you have access to, the free version, and then Copilot for M365, and that's the paid version, the $30 per user per month that we have been discussing today. The difference, is that the one in Edge was previously Bing Chat Enterprise, and that sits in the Bing Public Data Center. You can see it on screen here, similar to ChatGPT. If you've used that, and you can add your prompt, you can reference images. The main difference is that it also accesses the web, so it's not limited to a specific time period of its knowledge base. So if you ask it, for example, and I did to test it, who won the Euros a few weeks ago, it can tell you. You can see here that I'm not signed into Edge, and so this is in the public Bing data center, and not covered by any of Microsoft's protection. You'll see in a second, I'm just going to switch into another window where I am signed in to my HTG account, and the nice green shield up there at the top right there shows me that I'm now covered by Microsoft's enterprise compliance standards. That applies to this chat. It covers your personal data and your company data, and the history is only kept for the duration of the active session. It's not retained afterwards. Up at the top left there, if you have a Copilot for Microsoft 365 license assigned to your account, you'll then see these toggles where you can switch from web to work. And once you're in work, you can see it's a different interface. So I've got some history down the right-hand side there. And I've also got some suggestions of prompts in the middle. There's a full prompt library actually down at the bottom right to help you get started, and you can view these by various categories, or you can even save your own prompts. So very first demo, quick and easy one. I'm going to ask Copilot to write an email to my team announcing our new security managed service, HTG Overwatch. We launched this earlier this year. I want to thank everyone and be clear how much effort was put in, use information from, and I'm going to tag 2 documents, the first one being a press release and the second one being the Secure Productivity Award document, which I know has a lot of information about Overwatch in it. You can see very quickly, ChatGPT style, it is coming back right in that email, but it's referencing those documents as well as anything else that it's found in my OneDrive, emails, etc. If I then jump into Teams, it's a very similar interface for interacting with Copilot, and it just presents itself as a chat. I can see my chat history like I did before, and I'll quickly copy in the demo about the 60-word bio for my counsellor, John Smith. I've said make it formal and include his background experience and achievements. And again, very, very quickly, being very honest, we used to have to edit these videos a little bit to chop out some time. This one is not edited at all. Into Word now, and I have a pre-populated document. I've got a sensitivity label applied to it, and it's about an electronic bike, the Thunderbolt. It's quite a comprehensive document, 6 pages long. The only thing it's missing is the introduction. So in Word, you've got the Copilot button up at the top right, but it also follows you around the document next to your cursor. So if I click in here and then ask Copilot to write a short paragraph summarising the document, again, it'll troll through those 6 pages and pull out the key information and very quickly bring that back. So from there, I'm going to go into a new Word document, and I want to do some social posts about the new electronic bike from that document. So if I ask Copilot to write a series of 4 informal Facebook posts, I'm going to ask it to reference that document that we just looked at, and you'll see very, very quickly a wee orange shield appears up at the top of the Copilot pop out there, and that's shown me that it's detected that document has a sensitivity label applied to it. So this one is doing 4 posts. You know, you could ask it for 10 posts, 20 posts, and it'll comb through whatever you've asked it to point to, have a look for anything else it thinks is relevant, and then produce that copy. And immediately there, you can see the yellow bar at the top. It's inherited that sensitivity label from the original document. As with any generative AI, you can then go in and ask it to refine the response. So make it longer, make it shorter, add in X, Y, Z. I'm just going to ask to make it more chatty. And again, it does that pretty quickly. And then the final demo for Word, new blank document again, and I'm going to ask Copilot to create an FAQ document based on the Consumer Standards Code of Practice. So this is by the Regulator of Social Housing. It's a 19-page PDF document. And when I ask Copilot to generate it, again, it's going to pick up on that sensitivity label. And you can see it starting to produce those FAQs. After saving that document, jumping into PowerPoint because I want to make it a little bit more visually appealing. And when you go into PowerPoint, you've got these kind of suggested prompts, create a presentation about or from a specific file. And if I ask Copilot to create a presentation from that FAQ document that I've just produced, what I quite like about PowerPoint is that it evidences its logic, its thought process. So you can see here that here's the outline that I'm going to generate, and it's got the bullet points of the slides that it's going to produce. And then you can see the progress bar down at the bottom there. Again, very, very quick. The speed is definitely improving even just in the last 6 months. Adding in some speaker notes. And you can see there, we've got 10 slides, we've got speaker notes, we've got images, it's added layouts. And I will say as well, in the last kind of maybe 8 weeks or so, if you have a corporate template for PowerPoint, Copilot is pretty good now at adapting to that as well. So instead of creating the deck and then having to go through it and adhere to brand guidelines, it does it for you. And it's also referencing that original content. Final one for today, Copilot Informs. It's got your prompt library at the start again. For this one, I'm going to ask Copilot to produce a tenant satisfaction survey. I've told it that I work for a large housing association and I want there to be about 12 questions. So you can see there very, very quickly. And actually, if you already have the questions that you want to add into forms, if you copy and paste those in, it's just as much of a time saver as Copilot coming up with the questions itself. But it saves you the grunt work of, dragging and dropping, rate this 1 to 5 and yes, no, maybe. And it would just produce a form very, very quickly like this. And then it'll also suggest a theme that's appropriate for your form. Super powerful for HR departments, for employee satisfaction surveys and different things like that. So I hope that's given you a flavour of the capabilities of Copilot, where it might add value to someone in your team or your organisation. And I'm now going to pass over to Dave, who's going to go through a little bit about how we advise our customers in terms of that Copilot readiness piece.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Lindsay. Great demos, great content so far today, and thanks obviously to the audience for lending your ears for an hour. So look, I'll aim to continue in the same manner as the other guys. I'll start off by stating or restating some of the challenges which continue to impact the housing sector today. The audience will certainly recognise the continued economic pressures which exist within the sector, shrinking budgets, despite the ongoing rise of operating costs, particularly for repairs and maintenance and development of new housing. The need for continued investment in existing housing stock to meet with the current regulations on quality, safety, energy efficiency, to mention a few. I think the figures for this year, the industry expects to spend in excess of 8 billion on new housing investments. Additional demands being placed on providers owing to the Social Housing Regulation Act, stricter consumer standards, tighter inspection programs, and despite planned investment from providers, I think to the tune of 16 or 17 billion in housing development this year, demand for new housing remains high. A weakened market and economic uncertainty certainly makes development more challenging and riskier. So there's certainly a lot of interest in the commitments made by the new incoming Labour government within the sector. The increase and expedition of affordable housing, system reform and improvements in quality and sustainability. So I certainly hope that government can build on the financial viability of the sector by attracting further new finance throughout the remainder of this fiscal year and beyond. So to take some of those points, ever rising costs, shrinking budgets, it's quite a natural thing to look towards technology to help us close that gap. And the advent of generative AI within that aspiration is no different. And Neil spoke earlier to the speed of adoption. Microsoft and their marketing team have done a sterling job, as always, in driving the interest in Copilot, and businesses and organizations are rightly interested. I'm a user of Copilot. I can attest to the benefits and the efficiency, certainly in terms of time, that it can bring to any departmental task and organizational task. Always, as always, we need to give a balanced view on these things. And as a senior leader, I do spend a large amount of time in discussion with my customer stakeholders, who will ask what I like to refer to as the traditional security questions faced by all businesses and organizations. Questions such as, how do I know my data is secure? Is it accessible? Most importantly, who's it accessible by? And we do have to maintain those questions. We have to remember that the advent of Copilot does not remove the need for any organization to continue to look towards the security of their organizational data. And in many cases, I'm sorry to say that a lot of businesses and organizations are just not ready to adopt Copilot fully in current state. As we identified earlier in the presentation today, this isn't just about purchasing licensing and assigning users and deploying for immediate use. At HTG, we have adopted a security-led methodology. Now, it predates Copilot, but it maps beautifully to the Copilot readiness journey. And what it does is it ensures successful and safe adoption, and I'll speak to that methodology in the slides that follow. Before moving to that, I wanted to start with the cheese wheel, as I call it, on the slide in front of you. I've left it there purposefully for a few minutes so you can allow your eyes to track around the wheel. We're talking about M365 today, but you can see the scope for Copilot across the piece of Microsoft products, which you will no doubt have deployed within your organization. It touches everywhere: data, AI, operating systems, business applications. There's even a Copilot for IoT, the Internet of Things, which is obviously devices which within your sector you will use to drive efficiencies, to monitor energy sensors, maintenance, facility management, and I think that's particularly interesting as we move forward to the ever evolution of Copilot across that Microsoft stack that you see in front of you. So let's consider Copilot readiness. What is it? In essence, it's putting restrictions on what data people should and shouldn't see within your organization. Now, that may be to stop malicious or unknown intent, or it might just be a protection blanket across the data in your organization to protect different departments from accessing other departments' information. And some of the examples that have been given, some of the bad news stories, if we call them that circulate on the internet, is, you know, searching for staff salaries, searching for board information, or even trying to access a colleague's personal files. So we'll talk a little bit on the next couple of slides about how we can protect that. So Lindsay, if you could move us on. I wanted to briefly discuss this diagram, which you may or may not have seen. It gives an overview of the mechanics of Copilot, what it's doing within Microsoft 365 behind the scenes. We're not going to walk through the whole document and get deeply technical, but I just wanted to call out a few things related to the 5 process steps on the right-hand side of the slide. Number one, it's been mentioned already, first and foremost, none of your business data will ever leave your tenant. It will not send data to the model. Instead, it will use the data to construct a response to the specific user prompt. And we've had some examples of good prompting already. Number two, Copilot accesses what's called the Microsoft Graph, which is your context and your content. So it is contextually aware of your files, your people, and your meetings. And finally, number three, Copilot directly engages and integrates with Purview. So if you have things like data loss prevention, internal rules, sensitivity labels, encryption on particular files, we saw some of that from Lindsay already in the demos, retention rules, etc. Copilot must abide by those in order to carry through a rule set on what it delivers back to the user who is prompting in the first place. So if a user isn't allowed to see a file, the file's encrypted, the user isn't in a group which has access to that file or that content within the file, the user simply will not be able to use it in a prompt or have any access to that data within it. Moving to the next slide, please, Lindsay. A slightly different view of what we've just covered. This is how Copilot gathers the information and the data within the M365 tenant. So we've talked about inheriting the organization's existing security rule set, compliance and privacy policies. They are logically isolated and protected within your tenant, always within your control. Linda pointed that out earlier. As you can see, the data lives within the graph, and the semantic index on the left-hand side of the slide operates as a librarian in the library. That's how I like to think of it. It enables Copilot for Microsoft 365 to find and deliver the relevant actionable responses to the user prompt based on their user data and the company data stored in the graph. So by design, Copilot for M365 only generates those responses based on the information the users have explicitly been given access to. And those permissions, those labels that we've talked about apply across all of the Microsoft 365 applications, Outlook, SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams. So again, just to reiterate the point, a user will only get access to what they're supposed to see. Now, that's a very easy thing to say. If we move on to the next slide, I mentioned earlier, the best way to prepare yourself for Copilot is to work through a particular methodology. Our methodology at HTG we like to call the security pyramid. The pyramid's based on the principles of zero trust and is a graphical representation of a journey that you should take in order to protect the business and then be ready for a Copilot rollout. So zero trust strategy, I'm sure everyone has heard the term. It ensures that every entry point into your network and access to your data, whether that be a user identity or the device that they work from, is authenticated and protected, therefore reducing the risk of any security breach. Zero trust is a neat term, but unfortunately it isn't something that just gets switched on with the flick of a switch. It is cliche, it is a journey. So if we think of it as a mountain that you know everyone wants to get to the top of, but there are multiple paths, multiple base camps en route, and people are typically at different stages of a climb with varying levels of experience. But ultimately, the goal is the same. Everyone wants to get to the top. We like to think of security in the same way. So our pyramid is split into those three distinct areas: zero trust at the base, threat defense is your middle layer, and data protection at the top. And as you can see, we've put Copilot right on the top there. And Zero Trust Foundation covers everything from your user identities, the respective access management to the tenant, to the services, often referred to as identity and access management, or IAM for short. Threat defense is the onboarding of the organization into Microsoft Defender XDR platform, which proactively and reactively secures not only the identities, but also the multiple devices that a user will use within any organization today. And typically, a user has 2 to 3 devices now in the modern workplace. Moving up into data protection. That's the implementation of data security policies to protect the organization's data. So that's the labeling and so forth that we've referenced already. So we mandate this approach to traverse the pyramid before you can actually deploy Copilot securely, right? Now, that's not to say that you can't use Copilot without all of these things in place. You absolutely can, but not necessarily as securely as you should be. And you should be mandating that within your organization anyway, to avoid leaving your data potentially exposed to both internal and external actors. Interestingly, some customers have actually asked us to reverse engineer our methodology and use Copilot to help them identify security gaps. That's plausible. We've done that in some scenarios. It is a valid use case, but it must be carefully deployed and managed to ensure that there are no permissions issues, data leak, or wider threat to the organization. So moving on to the next slide. Through Microsoft and HTG's combined security strategy, you will implement robust identity and access management, endpoint management, data protection policies, and that will create a cyber resilient and stable working environment. But you do, as always, need to have the right licensing in place in order to achieve some of these steps that we've discussed on the previous slide. So some of the prereqs for the licensing for Copilot for M365 would dictate either, and again, this is dependent upon the size of the organization, a business premium license, or an E5 license, or an E3 license with relevant security add-ons, and that will help enable that Copilot readiness. So the features within these licenses are designed to work together to minimize operational cost and complexity, and obviously that helps with budget alignment and so forth. So I know from experience in many discussions within housing, there are lots of non-Microsoft solutions in place for things like communication, messaging apps, you know, in some scenarios we're even using traditional desktop phones. If you consider the comprehensive productivity stack within Microsoft 365, I would encourage you to investigate how your licensing not only grants access to Copilot, but does enable some budget optimization, which could potentially allow you to decommission third-party tools. Think Zoom, Zoom Enterprise, Slack Premium, and that helps with that consolidated management and a cleaner user adoption, and might help you redirect some budget back into other projects. And moving to the next slide, we do have some organizations on the call today who would fall into a sub 300 user category. At HTG, for those customers, we mandate Business Premium. That's the only license SKU at that size and profile of business that will facilitate the security journey we've talked about, and help us commit to making you more secure. I won't go into the detail of the table. Simply, if you look at the right-hand side, you can very clearly see the security features of the Business Premium license compared to Business Standard makes the Business Premium the obvious secure choice. Next slide. Coming up into larger organizations, so anyone 301 users and above. Again, you can see why we recommend an E3 with security add-ons, if not E5. We've had some comments already on Microsoft Purview on the call today. That's something that falls into those higher licensing SKUs. As mentioned, these licensed SKUs will help you remove redundant third-party solutions and help you cut the holistic licensing budget. Some of the stats we're seeing: cost reductions as much as 60% when you're consolidating into the Microsoft ecosystem. Recent Forrester study showed a 35% reduction in the likelihood of a data breach through the adoption of things like conditional access, detailed and integrated security logs, multi-factor authentication, and most important for a lot of customers, 25% of a time saving on managing new software through Microsoft Entra ID, Microsoft Intune. Coupling that with Copilot for M365, we've talked about some of the time savings and efficiency gains there. It does point to Microsoft 365 being that comprehensive solution and almost pushing itself forward as an obvious choice. So last slide from me. We'll finish off with a summary. Obviously, we've shown you a lot of things today. Copilot for M365 is a great tool for enhancing productivity. It is crucial to implement the measures that we've talked about to guarantee the security of you, your business, and your customers when using it. So I wanted to leave you today with 3 actionable steps that you could take forward into planning for Copilot readiness. Lindsay mentioned at the top of the call, we're a fast track ready partner. That means that we're able to deliver fast track benefit around workloads such as Defender, Purview, Entra ID as part of the cost of your Microsoft 365 licenses. So think of that as engaging with HTG can help you get a funded foot up, if you like, into any pilots or proof of concept exercises that you might be planning for Copilot. Our expertise is cloud cybersecurity in the modern workplace. So We collaborate with Microsoft. We leverage their advanced security capabilities in addition to the extensive sort of tooling and managed services that we provide. And with that, we enable high-performing secure digital workplaces and workspaces for every user, no matter what device they're accessing from or what location they're accessing from and over what network connectivity they're accessing from. So that's all for me. With that, I'll hand you back to Lindsay, and thanks very much for your time and attention today. Lindsay?
Thank you so much. And just to echo Dave, again, thank you for your time today. Are there any questions in the chat, or would anybody like to come off mute to ask anything first of all? Warm, fuzzy feelings all round. Okay, so I mentioned at the start, everyone will receive a copy of the recording of today's session, and we're also offering anyone who attended or registered a complimentary workshop specifically on your environment, your questions, your requirements. So whether that be way back at the start of the journey, maybe going through some more of those personas and scenario slides for different departments, doing a bit of a art of the possible workshop, Copilot readiness, and taking advantage of some of the fast track benefits, or maybe you've already got some licenses and need some help with adoption. Please take advantage of those workshops that are at no cost to you. And with that, I'll let you all get on with your day. Thank you so much again.
Thanks, everyone. Just you and me left, Lindsay?
I will. I'll give you a buzz.
Okay, cool. Thanks for that.
Bye.
Bye-bye.